Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond. Every Monday I'll be joined by guests to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice and so much more. Right now I'm taking the podcast on the road travelling with me, so tune in every week for short form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, gap year student or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you, designed to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show.
Okay, first things first, what names do you go by?
Good question. So at home in Norwich in UK, I'm known as Hammo by my dad and my close friends. In Vancouver here in Canada, I'm known as James. And in London, I'm known as Failed Musician.
How many countries have you travelled to and which three are your favourites?
How do you define a country though? But don't worry, we'll cover that in interviews coming up on this playlist. My top three in no order are Bolivia, Japan and New Zealand.
What's your favourite way to see a place?
That would be walking. I am an advocate of walking in the cities, towns, villages, mountains, beaches, small islands. I think you can really see a local place by walking the random streets, the back alleys, and just don't follow Google Maps. I think you can find out a lot about the local culture like that. And I'm going to second that actually. The best way to get to somewhere is definitely a road trip. You can check out our Canadian and USA road trip on the playlist. And also train travel. Just completed Interrailing on the YouTube channel. That's an awesome way to travel as well.
Which three new countries are you going to tomorrow if time and money weren't a problem?
That is going to be Bhutan, Guatemala and Namibia.
What are the three things you're guaranteed to do when you're travelling?
One of my favourite things I love to do when I travel is go for a coffee. So I'll be going to a local area and a local cafe. Secondly, I'm a bit of a sucker for a view. So there'll be a walk or a hike to a viewpoint overlooking the place that I'm at. Lastly, I'm going to be winging it. Not too much pre-planning, going to arrive there, see what the go is, see what to see, speak to some people, go to a local hostel and get a general idea of the best things to do.
If you could pick anywhere in the world to sit for an afternoon drinking coffee and watching the world go by, where would it be?
Athens, the Acropolis in the background, busy streets, lots going on. Can't think of anywhere better.
And why is coffee so important to you?
I just think it's the beating heart of a local community. And also each coffee house, if they're independent, have their own coffee. So I love tasting new ones, seeing what the cafe is like, the vibe, the feel, and maybe a cheeky pastry as well, who knows. Don't have too many of those in the future, but like we are going to do now, we're going to walk into our little local cafe. So let's go.
Got another question for you, Hammo.
Oh yeah?
What are your top three cuisines you've had on your travels?
Where do I start? Let's go, first of all, you can't beat British cuisine. I know it's not going to be in top three, but roast dinners, English breakfasts, stews, Bakewell tarts, Battenberg, the list could go on. But I'm not going to include that because that'd be controversial. So my top three that I've experienced on my travels are Indian, cannot beat Indian cuisine, north and south. Thai, one of the best in the world. And of course the cliche, Italian.
Why did you start the podcast?
Yes, COVID happened and no one could travel. So a little bit of boredom came in and I thought, you know what? If we can't travel, let's at least talk about it. So since then, in 2021, I've interviewed 150 guests so far, the majority of them being on my audio part of the podcast. So you can head to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, check those guys out. And there'll be some on this podcast channel going forward. And inspirational stories, tips and tricks, love meeting new people, love hearing about countries I've not travelled to, even different parts of those countries, the culture, the best food, the best coffee, the all-round game of hearing someone tell their story. Everyone has a story, we can all learn a lot, and what's better than conversing for an hour about travel?
Okay, next question. Are you a sunset or a sunrise kind of guy?
In my heart, I'm sunrise. In my head, I'm sunset. But practically, day-to-day life in travel, sunset.
Yeah, you ain't seen my sunrise. What type of traveller are you?
Yeah, I'm a budget backpacker at heart. A lot of the content on this channel will be based on that. But as I approach 35, I prioritise sleep and not late parties. And probably a private room in a hostel. So I can be a bit more creative with the podcast, either interviewing or creating content.
What are the three favourite hikes that you've done?
Poon Hill in Nepal, I think Machu Picchu in Peru, And my third left field option is going to be Mount Yasur volcano in Vanuatu.
And how about cities? What are your top 3?
New York, Kyoto and Cusco.
What trips have you got planned for this year?
Okay, I have the TravelCon event to go to in Portland in May with a long weekend there. We're going to do the Gulf Islands between Vancouver and Vancouver Island in the summer, so there'll be a few of those. In August, I'm going to the Washington DC for Podcast Movement. That's another event for me. And then in November, I'm traveling for a month, backpacking around El Salvador, Guatemala and southern Mexico, and maybe UK for Christmas and New Year.
What 3 travel podcasts would you recommend listening to right now that aren't your own?
Okay, Adam and Alan at the Tripology podcast. Their travel podcast is travelling and podcasting at the same time, a bit like what I did last year and what you're seeing now on my channel. Secondly, Curious Tourism by Erin Hines. That is a responsible travel podcast. A lot of topics get you thinking about the way you travel, what travel is, the privileges, etc. Great job by Erin. And thirdly, I'm going to go for Marie Walker's The Culture Cult Travel Show. She delves into the history and stories of countries around the world.
In one sentence, why should someone travel?
To enhance understanding and empathy around the world. We need that in a divided society at the minute. And I want people to learn about the different cultures around the world and the amazing people within those cultures. I think that's key because we can always learn something from people. And thirdly, it's fun. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Bit of coffee, bit of partying, bit and get to know local cultures, bit off grid. It is just an amazing experience as a whole.
It's more than one sentence, but that will do. Okay, last question, and it's a biggie. Why should someone subscribe to Winging It Travel podcast?
It's a bit of fun, a bit of inspiration, lots of content, countries and people coming on, so you can learn a lot and get some tips and tricks. And ultimately, I'm trying to inspire people to travel the world more. So hit that subscribe button, follow me, and you won't regret it. Just a couple of things from me. Please head to my new website, www.wingingittravelpodcast.com. The link is in the show notes, where you can access everything about this podcast, how to support the podcast, where to find episodes, a little bit of information about me, how to contact me, how to sponsor the podcast, how to be a guest. Everything is on there for you to take a look at. And secondly, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've got weekly episodes coming out for all my travels, pretty much the last year and going a little bit further back. And of course, my future travels coming up in 2024. It'd be great to see you on there. It helps podcasts gain that extra bit of traction, and I'm really enjoying showing you my content I have from the last year or so. Thank you. Hey, yeah, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for travelling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you.